Hey guys, Patrick Wind here and welcome to this training model in which we're going to analyze our strategic breakdown insights in order to derive nice ideas for our A/B testing guideline. So let's get started. Where do we actually do that? Well, we could either do it on ad level, ad set level, campaign level, or what I recommend in order to get strategic insights is going to account overview and derive the macro insights from the overall account overview level. Okay, for example, here we have this wonderful table in the beginning. So we see that from the almost 4,000 euros we spent, we got 245 sales. How much is that in euro? So we change it from website purchase to website purchase conversion value. So we see 6,500. We see nice, we see green numbers. So we see that this has increased. Here we can switch around whatever we want. So I really recommend to make up your own dashboard here. But the most important, I guess, is definitely how much, I think the most important is definitely how much we spent and how much we got in return, right? And depending on where you click here, you also get a different, we get the according graph, which is also of course very important. And also if we change it to number of purchases, we see the evolution, and also down here the cost per purchase, how the cost per purchase has actually developed over the past weeks. There's also a very interesting insight. Okay, but what we're really looking for in this model is getting some insights that help us to come up with new ideas. Okay, for example, ideas on audiences, ideas on copies, creatives, or other ideas that we can then include in our A/B testing guideline in order to come up with new tests that we're going to realize over the next days and weeks. So the first thing that I would like to understand here is, what about the age and the gender? I mean, we see actually in a very skewed analysis already focusing on men a lot, but it's just a reach. Let's say, what about money? So I think the most important is always, how much did we spend? How much did we get in return? Okay. And if we just take, for example, gender, we clearly see we spend everything on men, and we also got the majority of the money from men, and even the money we spend on women did convert significantly less. But what about age? Okay, so in age we learned something interesting. Okay, we learned that we spend too much money on people that are below 24 years, so 18 to 24. We see the green column, which is amount spent, versus the blue column, which is website purchase conversion value, is relatively higher. Okay, so here we spend much more money than we actually got in sales. However, in the other two big groups, like 25 to 34, we get more money than we spend, and also in 35 to 44 we get more money than we spend. And then once again on 45 to 54 it's the same that in the younger ones, so we spend more money than we actually get in return. So this is a very good analysis. Okay, and this is some very strong implications for me, because from now on I would strongly recommend this company to focus on 25 to 44 and forget about the young ones, and also forget about the older ones. So this is a very interesting analysis that I would definitely include in my audience ideas. For example, let's just write them down in a list. For example, only focus on age 25 to 44. And what do we see? We see that the main category is actually 25 to 34. So let's even put it like this as an additional comment. So main group is 25 to 34, but also 35 till 44 performs well. Okay, so that's already it's already an interesting insight. What about the hours of the day? What can we learn here? Are there any hours where we're actually losing money? Well, what is interesting here is that we actually make a lot of money during the night. So this hour 11 to 12, and then 12 to 1 and 1 to 2, these are actually our peak points, okay? I mean, of course, also the others are nice. So for example, also between 9 and 10 and 10 to 11. So what I would like to write down are, I mean, that's not in audience, that's in other ideas. In other ideas, I would call this day part targeting. So we're only focusing on specific parts of the day. For example, 9 to 11. 9 till 11. Morning focus. Another thing we see is that during the night, especially from 11 p.m. till 2 a.m., we also get very nice numbers. Till 2, night focus. And what else did we see here? Okay, we have the one in the morning, and then we have one additional peak between 7 and 8, and also in absolute numbers between 8 and 9, we also get nice sales. So let's call this one, what was it, from 7 till 9. Okay, nice. So also this one, let's call this evening focus. Now we can definitely be creative with all of this, and we could even come up with specific creatives, specific copies for each of those parts of the day. For example, here we say good morning, ready for a hard working day, or something like that. And here at night you say night shopping discount only until 2 a.m. 30% off, or something like that. It's just to come up with creative ideas to be relevant for the specific micro moments. And the one you show in the evening, you can see easily had a long working day. Feel free to check out our offers, or something like that. That's also a good option, and that's the thing we have learned already from this analysis here on age and on hours of the day. Here in this specific one, we only have spent money in Spain, okay, and we also got all our money in Spain. What about regions? This is of course interesting. We can see that there is a strong focus on these areas. Okay, but what I really like when it comes to the strategic analysis here is this table below. Okay, here of course you want to have applied your full funnel dashboard, and then you can apply all the breakdowns you want on this table. For example, once again, we could do age and gender. So we would see the same analysis that we have derived up here. So we would see that the age group 25 to 34 and then 35 to 44 are the ones that brought the most sales. You see, they're also the ones with the highest ROAS, and especially with the highest absolute numbers. Okay, but what's really interesting for us here in this specific analysis is the placements. Okay, so what I really want to learn here is what are actually the placements where I make money, and what are the ones where I actually lose money. So for example, what I learned, the placement that brings the highest number of absolute sales is Facebook mobile newsfeed and Instagram feeds. Okay, so I would already write that down. Best placements, mobile newsfeed and Instagram newsfeed. So here what I learn is, for example, I could do, once again, focus on collection ads, focus, and definitely include those collection ads also in Instagram, also in INF, collection ads. That's already good. And what else do I learn? For example, that Instagram stories does not very nicely work for us. So if you just compare the ROAS, okay, we learned that Instagram stories does not work. ROAS 0.8. So what could we do? We could option A, come up with new Instagram story creatives. That's an option. Option B is reduce budget for stories. Okay. C, find new audiences for stories. Okay. Probably it could also be that the audiences that we're showing these Instagram stories to simply do not resonate with stories. Maybe those audiences perform better on Facebook right column, which is also interesting. So Facebook right column, I mean, we haven't spent anything there, but just in relative terms, in terms of ROAS, it had the highest ROAS of all of them. So that's an interesting learning that I definitely have to write down. Highest ROAS placement, desktop right column. I mean, here the implication is very clear. The implication is create a new ad set only for right column to invest more budget there. So that's of course, that of course makes sense. Because if we would have spent not only 20, but 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 euros, and the ROAS would be the same, we would be very happy. Okay, so this is of course a very interesting analysis. And then one thing that I still like to show you here on the strategic point is the evolution. Okay, so we could go on day. So you would see the evolution on the entire account overview. Now, of course, we want to deselect the other breakdown, just to day. So we see the evolution over the different days. We see which one has performed the best. We can structure it this way. So now it's ordered the right way. So we see how our ROAS has actually developed over the past days. Okay, so that's one option to see the evolution. Okay, you have seen the trick was I choose breakdown day, and then I click here on account name in order to order it according to the days. Because if not, if you just leave it this way, it would order it according to the specific column. So the trick is you have to click here on account name, and then it orders it properly. That's one option. And the other option that you can do is if you want to see, for example, the evolution of Instagram stories, right? If Instagram stories, then you could also, let's say Instagram stories, we have seen that the ROAS was 0.8, but was the ROAS 0.8 all the time or not? So we could compare different time spans. Let's say, for example, the last 7 days in comparison to the 7 days before. Okay, so it compares this period to the period before. And now the table actually moves a little bit, and we could see the different columns have now the little arrow besides it. And if we just want to focus on the ROAS, we can now click on it, and it would show us a nice evolution. So it will show us how was it in this specific time period. So that was the previous one, 0.9, and now the new one, 0.8. So it even has gone down. Okay, so even it has even worsened. Okay, so it's interesting. So Instagram stories do not work, and have even worsened last week. Okay, so that's interesting to have this trend also in mind. So it could be that it has improved, but this one has not improved. It has even been worse than before. Okay, and that's when it comes down to ROAS, but we could also do this with the click-through rates or CPC. And then in CPC, for example, we see that Facebook mobile newsfeed and Instagram feed, both of them get much better cost per clicks. Cost per click has gone down, which is good. And this is of course because we're using collection ads, and these always get very good click-through rates. So guys, all of this information that we got from the strategic breakdown insights, now is worth gold because we have it pointed down in our analysis, in our A/B testing guideline. And in the next video, I'm going to show you now how we translate those learnings into actual A/B tests that we're going to realize over the next days and weeks. So guys, thank you very much for listening and see you in the next video. Goodbye.